Hey folks, so now that we're just a couple of weeks away from the big launch, from the big day, I want to take a few moments to talk about why we're building Elinity, what we're trying to accomplish with it, and the longer term vision. It's been a long time coming. We've been working on it for the last couple of years. The philosophical grounding of it started taking shape even prior to that, and we're finally ready to share it with the world and see what connections and joy and beauty and love it sparks for people. Right, so could not be more excited. This conversation, I'm going to try to keep it short. I'm going to talk at the highest level about some of the reasons why we built it. I'm not going to go into the personal reasons why I built it. I'm going to talk about the observations of the state of the world that prompted me to build it. So there's one part of it. The other part of it we'll talk about in some other conversation. Now I want to talk about the different components of it, right? Because this is not about solving one particular problem. This is all about taking a holistic view of the social and relationship landscape and looking at what does the ultimate solution. I hate to use the word solution, right? I'd rather use the word platform, but it, again, doesn't quite do justice. But again, don't want to be a pedant over here. What kind of an entity can best shape that post, this, we are going to undergo a transition, right? That's a huge part of our thesis. But what is the ultimate relationship building, social connection infrastructure look like? How do you build it? What are the incentives? How do you ensure that it's aligned to the longer term flourishing of our society and of individuals equally importantly, right? So I want to talk about that. I want to talk also about some of our beliefs because this product, unlike other products that if you determine that this is a solution, most people will come to the same product at the end, right? The same app, if that's the form factor. In this case, again, this is not me saying that because we built it, but we just made some choices that are not intuitive. They're probably not going to be as intuitive to most people. Yeah, and those were necessary for us to get to, even the first version, right? We absolutely needed to be what it is going to be, right? That was, for us, not building this current version and choosing another version, focusing on, there are so many different approaches that you could have taken that people have taken in the past, but this approach, it just works for us because it's philosophically aligned with the vision of the world that we are trying to build towards, right? So it was absolutely necessary. So let's start with the current landscape. I could talk about this endlessly, but I'm going to again talk about we actually are going to talk about a lot of the themes and points that we're going to discuss in this conversation in length, in depth, and in other conversations. But for now, we'll keep it short. So currently, humans are trying to optimize more than anything else for one thing, right? Good relationships, meaningful relationships. And despite the fact that the thing that we care the most about is good, meaningful relationships, most people struggle, most people fail. You look at n number of statistics. I don't want to go down the list of those, but like loneliness and quality of. I don't even want to focus so much on the loneliness aspect of it. Like, let's say loneliness affects 1 to 1 in 10 people, right? That is tragic. But I also want to take into account 90%, 95% of the rest of the humanity for whom they don't have the best relationships. They'll go, okay, it's fine, I'm not lonesome, but they haven't experienced, maybe they've touched it, but they'll not experience the peak of relationships, the peak of friendships, the peak of meaningful work, purposeful work, passion, and all of that, right? That is a problem. That's at the heart of it. It's not so much about the lower level problems of, people are lonely, how do you solve that problem? That is interesting. Obviously, that's like a byproduct of building a system like this. But I'm more interested in helping people imagine just how good their relationships can be, right? And helping them achieve that with the aid of the platform, with the AI that we built. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. Okay, back to the current landscape. So people are struggling massively, and things are only going to get worse, much, much worse. You just look at all of the trend lines, societal trend lines, they're going in the wrong directions. Again, I don't want to talk too much about that, about the n number of elements that go into our current landscape, and the problems. But at the highest level, you look at, I mean, I can give you some numbers, some indications, like 1 in 4 people in the US, the UK, Europe, etc., they are lonely. Most people actually don't have the best relationships. They're just, trudging along, because for most people, being lonely is worse than being in a subpar relationship. And most people can't imagine just how good things can be, right? So that's a huge part of it. Like, most people just do not get to experience the very best of how good relationships can be. That's a huge part of it. The other part of it is that tech companies, big tech, they're pushing us with AI, hyper personalization, and simulacra and virtuality. We're moving in a direction. The central problem is most people want to be in happy relationships. Most people want to find, like, this is universal. Most people want to find their tribe, find people that they just feel so gel so well with, right? For hobbies, leisure, passions, all sorts of stuff, collaborations, all sorts of stuff. We're deeply social creatures, and yet big tech and some of the societal trends are moving us into these silos, and they're also creating these replacements, these simulacras of the real world. And again, you can find so many of these things online. And with AI, this is going to be hypercharged 10x, because AI can fill any void, at least at the superficial level, such that people would believe that every single gaping hole that people have, biology, evolution want us to seek certain things, right? We've got certain drives that need to be met. One of those most powerful drives is obviously the drive to connect deeply. But tech is so powerful, right? And it can be used, it can be designed in such unhealthy ways, and we've seen examples of this, such unaligned ways, that it can push people. It can at least create the impression in the mind of the person that they don't want what they want deep down. Like, the desire for the thing that they want at the deepest level gets diminished and cloaked by the sheen that piece of technology can create, right? Like, Instagram can do some parts of it. I mean, I can use a number of examples. And with AI, this is going to be hypercharged in every single way that you can imagine. So we've got a fork in the road kind of a moment at this time. Also, the relationships that we tend to see, transactionalism, short-termism, has been seeping into relationships. People are opting out of deep, meaningful relationships. People don't even believe that long-term relationships are possible. They see their parents with 50% divorce rates, right? And most relationships not being the epitome of just, perfection. Perfection is obviously impossible to attain, but at least an ideal of what could be possible when two people work hard at a relationship. Most people don't even have that model anymore. No wonder people are opting out of it. People don't even believe that. And if people tend to be rational in many ways. So if they believe that finding these deep, meaningful relationships is going to be difficult, people just opt out, right? They don't want to be hurt. So that's been happening a lot. While I was building this, I read like hundreds and hundreds of articles. A few that I noted down as, I mean, this is obviously more American focused, because a lot of these articles were American focused rather than, broader world, Europe, etc. I'll just take a few examples here. The antisocial century, I think this was Jonathan Haidt, and he was talking about this. We're just addicted to our tech. And again, tech is going to be more addictive over time as it becomes more personalized, as it learns your patterns and keep you hooked, because the best consumer is a consumer for whom the greatest hole in their life hasn't been filled, right? Which is meaningful connection and relationships. If that hole hasn't been filled, people will buy endlessly to try to fill that hole to no avail, right? And that's what, I don't want to say that's what capitalism wants, don't want to frame it that way, but that is genuinely the framing that what the industry is trying to do, right? Because if you the the opposite side, you've got someone who's got the best relationships. They wouldn't seek happiness in just pure unadulterated consumerism, because they just want, right, all they need is with them. And now we are seeing ChatGPT and XAI Grok pushing certain relationship companions to people, and that has a huge risk of becoming the norm for younger people. And if that becomes a norm, I mean, I don't even want to imagine that future, right? That's just so dystopian, and that is exactly where we're heading. I'll actually try to paint that vision for you. Well, just a glimpse of it. So currently we are on track to, I mean, some countries are on track to lose like half the populations by the end of the century. I'm just focusing on one fact. You can just look at this problem from so many approaches. But the thing is that for humans, the greatest source of meaning is, and just the most important thing is meaningful relationships. So many studies. This is intuitive to most people, by the way, but you can just look at a number of studies. What was the most important factor? Was it money? Was it fame, fortune? Or was it just meaningful relationships? And 99.999% of cases, it is meaningful relationships. So we know what we need for a good life. And yet, the design of our world is such that we are just going in the exact opposite direction, where human relationships are not as sacred anymore. Then we got the solutions in the market, right? So there are connection apps like Bumble, I mean dating apps, stuff like Bumble and LinkedIn for professional connections, and Tinder and the likes of it, right? These are designed to keep you on the treadmill. They're not designed to understand you, the rich contours of your being, your values, your goals, who are you as a person, and then find you. Rather than keeping you on the treadmill, they want to suck you dry. The longer you're on the treadmill, the more they can get out of you, right? So that's literally the business model. And so it's very easy to see why they would want to, instead of finding you your person in the first instance, why they'd want to keep you on the platform. And this applies to the other platforms too. A part of it is that we didn't really have the technology to solve this at scale. So what's becoming possible, what has become possible with AI, is that you can model someone very, very deeply. But if you got enough text, enough data on them, through the hypothetical example, I tend to be a big journaling guy. So I've got hundreds of pages of notes in my journals, or write a lot too, in various places. I also do YouTube videos. So if you create a sum total of that and feed that to an LLM, you get a pretty good picture of me. It's not going to be super, super accurate. You're going to get that, right? And the more you interact with that particular AI that's been trained on your data, the better it's going to get, right? Because it's going to jump to some conclusions based on the things that you might have said without you having the chance to go deeper, without you having the chance to add some nuance, some color. So you can do that over continued interactions, right? But if you got that kind of an AI, then you got the base material to be able to connect people at scale, right? So this is what the problem, what it all comes down to. Now let's get back to the connection and relationship problem. We want to find the best people, but it's impossible, extremely unlikely for us to find the right people. Some people get lucky. Some people have, I wouldn't say lower standards, but it's obviously true that different people have different levels of standards. And for some people, like 20% of humanity might be considered to be a good partner. For some person, like 0.0001% of people might be eligible, right? So this is just true. There's nothing controversial about this. So some people do get lucky, right? But most people do not end up finding the right person. And not just for romantic relationships, but even people move to different places, people become a different person, people evolve. And so what would have been a good friend in the school days, in the college days, might not be a good friend anymore, right? So, and people's needs change, and most people do not end up fulfilling the particular leisure friendship bucket. So most people today actually don't consider themselves fulfilled on that front. This is, again, lots of studies have looked at the data, crunched the numbers, and that's the conclusion that we draw from that. And then collaborations, right? Like creative collaborations, research collaborations, all sorts of collaborations. Again, most people would love to do something with other people, right? If they find their kinds of people. But most people do not end up finding those people, and that just leaves so much on the table. What if you had a system, you had this thing that understood people at a deep level, that could model people, the preferences, the goals, the values, the desires, all of that, right? At a very deep level. What if that system could then be used to find other people that match at a very deep level to that first person? That's exactly what we're building. Now, what this does sounds simple, but what this does is solves two of the biggest problems, right? Like, one is the inefficient matching. Again, going back to the point, most people just end up not finding their kinds of people, just due to the random nature of life. So you solve that to a huge degree. Obviously, over time, this system only gets better and better as it has more data, as it understands humans more and more. So that's a huge part of the recurring self-improvement, self-improving nature of it. The other thing that this does is that relationships are one of the big reasons why many people end up breaking up. Is that initially they thought that initially this person passed a threshold, but they were not sufficiently high that due to the inevitable frictions and problems that arise in any relationship, they were not the match, the fit wasn't strong enough, the alignment wasn't strong enough to kind of weather the storms. But if you increase the fit of most people in terms of the person that they have in their life and the people that they have in their life, right, the quality, then you make relationship building so much easier. Right, that is a huge part of our thesis. The second part is that what if, again, people struggle to build amazing relationships, partly due to this reason, that they just didn't have, like, the initial fit just wasn't sufficient enough, that they would have been able to weather the inevitable storms. But then the second part of it is that most of us tend not to have the best relationship skills, right? We tend not to be super good at listening, all sorts of things, right? Some people might have traumas, some people might, it's just not the best. And it's a skill like everything else, but most people don't learn those skills. What if you had a system, what if you had a relationship buddy that could walk with you throughout the course of your life and help you build amazing relationships with your partner, with your friends, with your people? That's the second part of it. The first part of what we're building is the social connection and social connection part of it, which connects you to your best fit people across the three core domains of one's social life. So one is romantic, helping you find your most aligned person, right, that you can build a long-term, meaningful, the best relationship with. Then there's a leisure component, huge component, that helps you find your kinds of people that you can hang out with, just have fun with, engage in your hobbies with, stuff like that. And then the final bucket is a collaboration. Again, people that you can work with, create with, build with, explore with, right? So those are three core components of one's social life, and our social connection platform does matchmaking for all of those. We realize that if you can do it for one thing, which was obviously initial focus, initially we were looking at romantic, then you can extend that, and then you can expand the use case substantially. So that's what we built. The second part of it is a relationship building. So we've got loads of features too. I'm not going to talk about the features in this conversation. I'm going to talk more about the philosophy of the platform. What if you could then solve the relationship building, the relationship flourishing part of it by embedding this platform, this AI, into people's lives? And again, permissions and all of that, obviously. This is only for people who see the value in it, right? Like, this is not going to be a tech that is going to be pushed to people who don't want to have AI in such an intimate part of their life. Our thesis is that, it is going to become, everyone's going to have this their lifelong AI companion. The way people have pets, people are going to have an AI. People are going to grow with it. The AI is going to grow with them, going to learn from them. And this AI is going to be one's life coach, one's therapist, one's buddy, one's friend, all the stuff that you might want your AI mentor, all of the stuff, right? It's not going to replace humans. It's just going to, the utility of having an AI like that understands, that has the deepest context on you more than any other person, and that is always available. There's emotionally intelligent. So that's another key approach that we are taking, building these what we call augmented empathy engines. Once you build that kind of an AI, it becomes a natural part of your social life, a natural extension of your life, of your mind. And it can be helpful in so many ways. It can be, as I said, it can be a life coach, it can be a relationship buddy, nudge you, remind you, help you learn the things that you want to learn, the skills that you want to learn to, build, design, and live the best life that you want to live, right? So that's a huge part of our platform philosophy. Another huge part of our thesis when building this platform is there's a 3-layer approach that we are taking. One is the social connection layer, then there's a relationship building layer, and then the third is the self-relationship layer. The more you know about yourself, the more self-aware you are, the better the quality of your relationships. And the better your relationship with yourself, the better your relationship with other people. And so we also embedded this at a deep level on the platform. And that's where the platform starts from. One of the things that humanity's done for the last 10,000 years is decrease luck. Be it through weather control, be it through all sorts of things that we've done. One of the meta trends of civilization and meta goals of civilizations has been reducing luck in all sorts of domains of life, of existence. If you can remove luck from the social place, right, if you can make that efficient, then you unlock so much love, beauty, joy, connection, passion, all the stuff that you want to have more of in the world. And that's what we're trying to do. As a North Star, imagine a platform in the year 2050 which has the database of every single person on the platform. Everyone wants to connect with the best fit people. This is universal. So everyone who wants to, they'd be on the platform. And so this AI can then match you with your person by understanding both you and that other person at the deepest level possible, and then connect you. No luck involved, even if the odds of you finding each other were 1 in a trillion. One of the meta reasons we are building this is that we see the world going in a certain direction. We don't like that direction. We don't like that world that we are trending towards. And so we want to build a force that can move us in a different timeline. This timeline is where people have the best relationships. People have these rich social lives. And people live lives of deep love and intention and depth and passion and purpose. One of our high-level goals is to build the best human modeling system in the world that can predict what a human would do. If you want to build the best matching engine, this is how we start. So that's also something that we deeply have been investing in. One of our meta quests as a company is to build a new kind of a mind. I won't talk too much about this particular meta quest, but this is very important for us for all sorts of reasons. We deeply care about, one of the things that we care the most about beyond this high level problem is alignment with AGI. If you don't solve that problem, none of the stuff that anyone's doing would matter by 2050. Right, so that's a super important problem. And then beyond the existential threat, it's just that you would want to have an AI that's aligned deeply with human values and goals, just as a default for actualizing the goals that we want to attain as a civilization, as individuals. So that's probably the most important question of our time. And we've got some ideas that we want to contribute towards solving that problem. Of the ways that we're going to do that is build this, we've got a new kind of an architecture that would be aligned by default. So we'll be building that. We'll be building that because we want to contribute to solving the alignment problem, but we'll also be building that because when you build the kind of AI that we're building, you don't want to build that on a boring old transformer-based architecture. It just doesn't work for us for all sorts of reasons. We're going to build an AI that is not only aligned by default, but it's empathetic at the deepest, true felt level, where it has emotional intelligence. And that's the key to having something aligned with humanity and humans. And when you build that, one of the big reasons of building that in the first place is that can then become the mind, like the AI companion that every single user of Elinity has. That mind, that hardware and software, that particular mind, is what houses that AI. And that allows us to own the entire stack in-house, including alignment. Alignment is so important. When you build a lifelong companion, you want it to serve the person. You want that AI to look up for the person. You want to have the AI to have a longer term horizon on the person's flourishing. You want the AI to understand the person at the deepest level imaginable, better than even the person who understands themselves. You want the AI to be aligned with them, to be deeply empathetic, and to be deeply emotionally intelligent. But that's going to be a very difficult question, obviously, because we're talking of deploying emotions into something that has a radically different substrate, but we'll actually work on substrate. The substrate is actually the key part of the architecture that we built in. One of the reasons we are building this in the first place is that we are idealists at heart. We are hopeful romantics at heart. We believe that people can have the best relationships, that soulmate level relationships are possible, that friendships are so amazing that they feel like kindred spirits are possible. We believe that amazing collaborations are possible, and so much value can be unlocked if you solve this people connection problem. So much joy, so much love, so much beauty, so much of all of the good stuff can be unlocked. And we want to help unlock that. Of the shorter term goals that we have, and this is probably shorter to mid term, is to help with the transition, AGI transition. As our rules of the economy, the social contracts, everything is being rewritten, there's going to be a great ontological shock for most people. We don't want to just build the post-AGI infrastructure, social infrastructure, relationship infrastructure, meaning infrastructure, but we also want to help people go through this phase with the minimal amount of pain and suffering. There's going to be some, inevitably, when you have a revolution as great as this. We believe that great relationships and meaningful, call it work, call it purpose, call it passion, they're the two great bulwarks against this. They're the biggest life absorbers. If you have those two pillars in place, everything else becomes easy. And we want to lay the infrastructure for that to help people in this transition period. Which gets us neatly to the second thing that we are building at Elinity. We're building this product called LRS, which is all about helping connect best fit companies and best fit people. So imagine you're a person and you care deeply about the kind of work that you're going to do, or you're a company and you want to find people who are deeply aligned with the mission that you have, with people who have a deep sense of purpose. In the post-AGI world, most work is going to be automated. It's going to be handled by AI. But the thing that no AI will be able to bring to the table are the human attributes: passion, purpose, personality, sense of mission convergence. And these things will matter the most in that world. In that world, as these attributes become more and more valuable, the way work is done, the entire economy will change. The structure of work and all of these things are going to change radically. We've been thinking a lot about what that post-AGI world looks like, and we've been laying the infrastructure for that with this offering called LRS, which is this person-company matching platform where the matching is done based on a deep analysis and understanding of a person, their passions. It's less about the skills, which are going to be commodified as such, but it's more about the human stuff that the person is going to be uniquely going to be able to bring to the table for that company. I'm saying from the company's perspective, it's going to be more about, because they'll have all the AGI, they'll have all the agents that they would need to do a lot of the grunt work, a lot of the boring work, but they would want to have people that they who would share in the mission, who would have a deep sense of mission congruence, who would have a deep sense of purpose for that work, who would have a deep sense of passion. And so we've been building something to fill that gap that we see will emerge in the next year or so as the post AGI goes into high gear.